Hello everybody, my name is Braden Pauley and I will be discussing the effects of violent video games on teenagers. So for years now there has been the argument of, do violent video games have an effect on teenagers, and is there a correlation between the two that makes kids act out, make them have violent tendencies? And this is not the first time you've heard of this. This has been all over the news, especially back in 2013 with the Newtown incident. This has been a long ride and just so many articles about it with no concrete evidence, with more or less each one leaning to one side or the other. There was no concrete evidence between this. I am here to show you the concrete evidence that I have found that researchers have been doing for a while now and have come to a conclusion on. So without any more to do, let's jump into, is it fair for parents to be fearful? And yes, it's fair. It's very fair for parents to be fearful, I should say. Let's think about it. You are a parent back in 2013. You see the Newtown incident on the news, and you start seeing these violent video games pop up all over everywhere. And suddenly there are news articles and everything to start blaming these violent video games for the actions of teenagers and the actions of these kids doing massacres. And you're sitting there in awe, not really understanding what to do. So you just do the most logical thing. You fear what those violent video games will do. Sasha Emmons of parenting.com puts this in a very good light. While I do not agree with her statement, I will say that this article that she wrote about it is showing the point of view of her as a parent. She stated that back in 2013, after the Newtown incident, she let her young boy watch Star Wars, a very revolutionary film, which is very popular today. Suddenly, after she showed him Star Wars, he started running around her house, turning anything into a pretend gun, and saying that he was Han Solo and he was going to hunt down the bad guys. So today, to us, it sounds pretty cute, but back then, and even still to some people today, it is still a lot hard to swallow that concept. And to her, she was very fearful. She was scared because she was afraid that these violent movies and video games were going to corrupt her child into becoming one of them people that massacre other kids and other people. It's just sad to see that parents have to go through this, unfortunately, very rational fear. But let's move on from the parent's perspective to the concrete evidence portion. So, I found this concrete evidence through Ollie Barter of Forbes. He's been working for Forbes for a while now, and I found him through researching some pop culture stuff, and I found this article that shows a concrete evidence link to nothing connecting violent video games and violent teenage actions. It was a study by Professor Andrew, I believe it's pronounced Przybylski. I'm going to call him Przybylski. I'm sorry if that's wrong, but Professor Przybylski wanted to make sure that nothing was going to stop this mass study that he wanted to do from feeling biased. So he created this mass study and built it and put it together, and before he even started, he ran it through a bunch of other scientists. I don't know the exact term for it, but what this does is it makes sure that other scientists who haven't heard of this project look through it and make sure there's no personal bias added into it to make the study lean one way or the other. So that's what he did. And then they all approved it, which means that he could go ahead and do it, and then they would view the results afterwards to see if there was any personal bias. What he did is he gathered over 2,000 subjects in total with an immense amount of them being teenage British boys who he sent home take-home tests to the parents after letting the kids play violent video games. He would have these kids play violent video games, and these parents would record their actions afterwards. After almost a month of studying, and after all the results came back, Professor Andrew Przybylski concluded that there was no connection to any violent video games leading to any violent teenage actions or change in behavior at all. And this was in normal teenage British boys. This is not the first study to show this either, and Professor Przybylski says this as well, that this is not the first. He does also say that it has been clinically proven that pretty much video games have a very good track record with overall cognitive experiences. So it helps kids calm down and relieve stress rather than doing those violent actions that might actually take that stress to the next level. But he does say that there is no proven test with online video game trash talking that can actually probably hurt more than it can be positive about. That is what he has said, but there needs to be further testing done on that. But let's move into the gray area that I want to talk about, because this proves one thing. This proves that there is no connection in normal kids. And when I mean normal, no kids with any prior mental disabilities. Children with depression and anxiety have not been tested on. They have not specifically targeted them, and that is a different demographic that they need to test to get a concrete answer. But what they have tested is they have tested children with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Autism spectrum disorder is the autism spectrum. Not every kid really, it's hard to test because every kid with autism spectrum disorder is different. But these kids are different. They're not necessarily normal, and that's not a bad thing. So let's move on to that. So Sean Heasley of the Disability Report, or I believe that's what it is. I don't remember. Sean Heasley, the founder of the Disability Scoop or Report, I can't remember, said that they did some testing on children with ASD. And what they found was these children had different results for different video games. Certain video games made them act out more and would have them be slightly more aggressive and agitated, while other video games didn't have that same problem. That they would have the opposite effects. They would calm them down, have them listen more, be more cognitively aware. And that's the whole thing, is we're never going to get a real answer for the people who are different than the average person. It is really hard to find that. So for people with mental disorders, it's going to be very hard to find that. All in all, despite what the media and even what our president says, violent video games do not have any connection to violent actions. Unfortunately, these violent actions are all led by one thing. Unfortunately, sick people. And I just hope that these sick people get the help that they need and prevent more tragedies, as over 100 tragedies have happened over the past year. Violent video games have been proven to be cognitively benefiting for children and adults. So, can we please stop this crazy idea that violent video games are to blame for all of our problems, and especially the problems that we do not want to face. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate it. I know I stuttered a bit, but I feel like I found my tracking, so thank you. Appreciate it.